Hi, my name is Imran Haq. Welcome to another episode of The Voice of a Leader, the series where I interview high-achieving leaders, try to find out how they got to where they are. Adolescence is supposed to be one of the healthiest times in our lives. However, Australia's youth experience a lot of problems. For example, Beyond Blue have published a number of statistics such as 1 in 16 youths are currently experiencing depression. And what's even more concerning, suicide is the biggest killer among young Australians. This week, I caught up with Glenn Manton, who's a professional speaker, author, and athlete. Glenn, welcome to The Voice of a Leader.
Thanks, Imran. How are you?
I'm not going too bad, yourself?
Well, I think you're lying, to be honest, because you told me off camera that you're an Essendon supporter. So I think there's a bit of pain there, and this is all about leadership, and I think your team is lacking leadership.
I don't disagree with that. So there's no debate there, that's true.
It's a tough break, isn't it? Leadership, it's fundamental to everything. What about your leadership here? Look, you've chosen a studio here. We're absolutely surrounded by noise. How are you feeling about that? Do you think we can get this interview out?
Yes, I think so, actually. I was going to say we can use it to our advantage.
How do you think we can use it to our advantage?
Well, if people like jazz music and leadership, it's two bonuses in one.
Oh, nice. You covered two birds with the one stone,
That's correct.
so to speak. Yeah, so, well, you're a good shot. You've knocked them both out of the air. So fire away. You've got some questions for me, I believe.
Sure. When you were 17, you had a big life-changing moment. You were upset one time and I believe you punched like a piece of glass with your hand. And not only did you injure your hand, actually that was a 5 centimeter thick glass, so it's a pretty tough glass. So you injured your hand and you also caused injury to your arm. You saw a surgeon and the surgeon said, Glenn, you can't use this arm anymore, which would have been devastating news. However, you thought you could still make something out of it. And instead of using that information to put you down, you worked extremely hard and you went on to have a very successful AFL career with Essendon and Carlton. So the question is, how did you, after having something so traumatic happen to you, how did you turn it around?
It's a really tough question to start with. You've gone straight for the jugular. Well, first and foremost, it was a thick piece of glass. Secondly, I was very much in a poor mindset, both internally and externally. How I felt about myself and how I felt about the world around me was somewhat clouded. And I was in a phase of life where, for whatever reason, I decided I wanted to be a footballer. And that meant acting like a footballer, behaving like a footballer at all times. And my vision and perspective for what a footballer would act like and should act like was governed by stereotypes and it was very inaccurate. So my behaviours became an inaccurate depiction of who I really was, and that led me to basically lose my temper and thrust my elbow through a very thick piece of glass and essentially cut my arm in half.
Oh my gosh.
Which hurts a little bit, but not as much as the disappointment in knowing that you basically betrayed yourself. And that's exactly what I did do, and I basically lay before a surgeon in a hospital waiting room, if you will, on a gurney, my arm up, in a brace, the bleeding stemmed, and the doctor said to me that I was a fake, a phony, and a fraud. He told me that everyone else would have surgery that night before me, I'd be the last person to have surgery, and that I should think about what sort of human being I wanted to be moving forward. And he punctuated that comment by saying that I was a joke. And I remember that so clearly. He just said, "You're an absolute joke." And you have to remember that this surgeon had actually been seconded from the UK to perform microsurgery in Melbourne at that particular time. So it was not like he had any understanding of AFL football, my aspirations, who Glenn Manton was, or anything to do with my environment, my world. He was just looking at somebody whom I'm assuming he saw as a jerk. And that's a pretty fair description of who I was and the way I was acting during that small period of time. But as you know, it doesn't take long for a mistake to be made, or for that matter, something to be resurrected and corrected. So I lay in that bed after he'd left the room and told me, as you rightly pointed out, that I would never use my arm ever again, not have any function in that space. And I decided that from that night onwards, I would always be able to look into a mirror. In fact, people watching this particular interview won't be able to see it, but just behind the cameras, there's a series of mirrors there, and it's funny that every room I walk into, I see a mirror and I think about that time. A lot of people would think I'm there to do my hair, but I think about that time in my life and think about what I see in the mirror, what that reflection means. And even if I speak down the barrel to the camera now, every morning when I step in front of the mirror, Imran, I just ask myself one question, and the question is based on colloquial Australian expression. The question is, are you fair income? Is this a reflection who you really are? And I'm very proud to say that from that day forward, I've always been able to answer that question, yes. This is really who I am, and I will behave that way. Am I always going to be right? Am I always going to be perfect? Am I going to make mistakes? All these sorts of things. Well, right? No. Perfect? No. Make mistakes? Yes. But I'm going to be genuine about every single thing that I do, the things that I say, the things that I believe, the way that I love, the way that I care, my integrity, my authenticity. It won't be questioned, especially by the most important person in that space, me.
Good.
So this is about leadership, as we spoke about. Well, leadership starts with me.
Why did the doctor or the surgeon, call you a jerk? What did he base that on?
I think that's a fantastic question to which I have no answer. I don't know. I guess it's a perceptive feeling from that doctor, having more than likely stood in front of many young men and women and said, wow, this is the vibe that I get from this person. I'm not sure that you're heading down the right track. You, as a person, have certain skill sets that you take into any conversation in your relationship. My world the same. So your perception on someone slightly askewed from mine, that doctor just probably made a beeline for what he thought was somebody who needed a foot up the backside. So whack, I copped it, and I copped it really, really hard. Your description and mine are probably tempered a little bit from the truth. You went pretty hard. And as a result of his ability to understand where I was at, lucky or otherwise, he helped shape my life.
So indirectly he was trying to help you?
I think indirectly, yes. But the funny thing is, regardless of whether it was pointed or otherwise, the person who had to do all the work was me. And I chose to use his inspiration, his impetus, as a starting point to correct my behaviour. And as I said, behaviour is at no time perfect. Leadership is not perfect. But again, we're talking about integrity. We're talking about effort. We're talking about one's willingness to be true. And that was something that I decided that night that I was never prepared to compromise again. And I'm glad. Oh, I like the tension.
Yeah.
The tension in the music. I like that. This is a perfect soundtrack.
Keeping me relaxed.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's
I was going to say, there's that famous line in The Matrix where...
We dodging bullets.
Where Morpheus says to Neo, I can only show you the door, but you have to open it and go through it. So in reflecting back to you, the surgeon could have said some hard words, but at the end of the day, you could have just listened to it and done nothing with it, but you used it to make you a better person.
Well, maybe I'm the only person on earth who hasn't really watched The Matrix from start to finish. I've only ever watched snippets, but it's a really great quote that you shared then. And that is something, if anyone watching this particular interview wants to jot down, I would jot that down, I really would. Because yes, you can be shown the door, but what comes next is completely up to you. And the funny thing, as you know, because you're a little bit older and long life, and some people watching this particular interview will be, you get shown a lot of doors, inadvertently or otherwise. And to be able to have some discretion and also some desire to say, you know what, I'm going to open that. I'm going to step through into that space, because at the end of the day, no one can hold your hand. The last steps, whatever it happens to be, are always yours.
Good. There was one point, actually, during your AFL career, where you had a mentor, Alec Hepness.
Alec Epis, yes.
Yes, and I believe you saw him every Wednesday morning for 9 years straight.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
How much of an influence did he have on you?
Well, when you're committing to another human being to spending every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m.
7 a.m.
7 a.m. Wednesday morning, Clarinda Reserve, which is a large park at the bottom of Park Street in Moonee Ponds. When you're committing to spending an hour or two with that person every Wednesday morning, and as you alluded to, for 9 years, they're giving you something pretty special. And Alec promised me that he'd make me a better footballer. He also promised me that he'd make me a better person. And the result of my investment, again, those last few steps are mine, I end up with essentially a second father, an amazing friend, a mentor, a coach, and somebody who helped realign my purpose in life and give me some different variations as to how I want to move forward and what I wanted to do with my life. So an incredible human being, and you know it's been a great gift, if you like, when you wish to give a gift in return, which I've wanted to do many times, to say thank you and to square the ledger, so to speak, and you're left saying to yourself, there's nothing I can give here. What could I possibly give? I buy you a Porsche.
Yeah.
Does that make it better? I send you around the world. Does that make it better? I buy you a beautiful watch. Does that?
Yeah.
No, the best I can do is to say thank you and mean it and say that I love you. And I really enjoyed telling Alec that I loved him the first time that I said it, because it was just a huge relief to know that, yeah, the balance is there. You've given me a lot, and I'm actually giving you something incredibly personal back. I'm giving you my love.